As we get closer to WrestleMania, they call it the Showcase of the Immortals. I don't know if it feels that way right now. Someone that can help me to decide if it feels that way joins me now on the Vaqueros Cafe and Cantina hotline. Our good friend Jon Alba from Spectrum Sports 360. They're in Central Florida. He is on the ground there, as well as he hosts the Living The Gimmick podcast, which you can get anywhere podcasts can be gotten, just like ours. Jon, how are things in Florida?
Are you saying that Bad Bunny versus The Miz is not a showcase of the Immortals?
Hey,
listen,
quite.
You know what? I'm joking because from everyone I've spoken to at the WWE PC, Bad Bunny's been training since WrestleMania, and they have said that he is really good. And based on the worked punch that he threw on The Miz on Monday Night Raw, I think that's going to ring true.
I mean, it's not much of a high bar, but it's better than Shane McMahon's punches. So at least there's that. And Shane's in the family.
Wrong.
So, and I think part of it is the simple fact that I'm of an older generation. I'm the over 50 crowd. Like, for instance, they're making the big deal about Sami Zayn's going to premiere his documentary trailer, and he's going to bring on Logan Paul. The only Paul I know of is Chris Paul. So maybe you can explain to me who is Logan Paul?
Maybe Paul Simon, perhaps.
That's even better. Paul Lynn. I watched Hollywood Squares as a kid.
No, Logan Paul is a YouTube celebrity who has taken on a professional fighting career, and he's done massive numbers. He's got like 23 or 25 million subscribers on YouTube. He's relevant right now. And, part of being a successful promoter is having your finger on the pulse of what's popular right now. And, WWE has certainly capitalized on that with Bad Bunny, who is one of the bigger recording acts in the world right now. And then Logan Paul is one of the biggest names. Two people who I personally don't have much personal interest in. But, hey, you know what? If that attracts extra people, well, maybe that's what you need for WrestleMania, which is going to be a pretty historic show when all's said and done, given the ramifications of what we're coming out of here with the pandemic and Peacock and all that stuff.
Well, absolutely, and that kind of leads into the next thing about the tickets, and I want to get to what you broke earlier today. But as of right now, from what we gather, they're going to have around 25,000 at Raymond James Stadium. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, but those tickets have not sold out, right?
No, they have not sold out as of this moment. Okay. We're not really sure how many tickets have sold. Like, if you go based off of the map and what's been made available, they're not far off, but who's to say that that's also the full extent of how many tickets have been sold? We don't know that.
So, and this was something that Justin and I were talking about last week, is the lack of fans coming in from outside the United States, is that having an impact on ticket sales right now?
I would think so. And I'm not sure if you recall, but a few weeks back, I had reported that WWE at one point was seeking around 45,000 for WrestleMania for each night. And I just don't think it was viable. And they had to pivot. And I think without the international travelers, which make up such a big part of WrestleMania traditionally, that stunts it a little bit. And on top of that, I don't think everyone's entirely comfortable domestic traveling yet.
Well, that is certainly true. I mean, that's my case. Because I've been asking, we talked about it. I'm not going to Tampa. It's not quite time yet. We're almost there, but I'm gonna wait until WrestleMania comes back to Texas next year. So, let me ask you this. The build to WrestleMania, this has been, I would say, probably one of the most convoluted and maybe even disjointed builds toward WrestleMania. Do you get that feeling just overall?
Yes. In a short answer, yes. It's been a very confusing build, especially when, in theory, your main events are pretty strong, right? Like, you got to feel pretty good about the main events on this year's shows. but as the undercard, there are some good matches there that I'm interested in, but getting it all together has been very disjointed, and you can see week-to-week booking rather than long-term build, especially the likes of the Shane McMahon and Braun Strowman stuff, which I don't think I'm exaggerating here, and perhaps I am. Maybe some will disagree with me, but I think the Shane McMahon Braun Strowman program is probably one of the weakest WrestleMania programs of all time.
I would wholeheartedly agree. I have absolutely no interest in seeing Shane McMahon once again. Whether it's jumping off the cage or doing whatever stunt man stuff he likes to do in the ring. I think it's a waste of time. I think it's a match that could be given to, name one of a myriad of wrestlers that are not being seen as of now. So I'm with you there. And it's what's surprising, I guess it shouldn't surprise me, but it does a little bit. We've always thought WrestleMania, they start booking that like the week after the previous WrestleMania. So, they knew what they were going towards. This one feels like they woke up like about 2 weeks ago and said, "Oh my God, we gotta put together a card for WrestleMania," and that's why it just seems like so haphazard. We mentioned the 2 world title matches, Roman Reigns and Edge, which is now Roman Reigns, Edge, and Daniel Bryan. Okay, and maybe you can help me understand this, but the sense I get is that for whatever reason, they were getting scared that they weren't getting the reaction from wherever. There's no fans, but they weren't getting the reaction that they hoped to get by Edge challenging Roman. So that's why they had to bring Daniel Bryan in and basically make Edge a heel.
I think that's probably accurate for the most part. Listen, I'm never going to be upset about Daniel Bryan getting a spot. I think he's just one of the most incredible performers we'll ever watch in our lifetimes. And I was watching that match at the last pay-per-view and just saying to myself, this guy is just an all-time legend. And listen, I think Daniel Bryan makes the match better. And I know there's a lot of people who don't like triple threat matches, but I do think he makes that match better. But I do think there's some merit to what you're saying for sure. And maybe that's a product of how you're booking a program. But I do think they're going to deliver, and Roman Reigns has delivered in every single way since he came back. So I'm really not too concerned about that. One match that I thought could have been a main event, I thought could main event night one, was Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks. And I just think the feud to this point has just been putrid. And it's been really disappointing because all they had to do was just who's the best of the women's division, just have them win matches, and that's it. That's all people would care about. But WWE has a big problem in recent years where you are constantly beating down people that you're supposed to be pushing as important. I hate non-title matches. I hate strange bedfellow feuds. And as a result, you have people get cut off when they're hot. And I do worry that weakened Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair quite a bit.
I couldn't agree more. First, let me go to Daniel Bryan. Yes, by all means, love to see Daniel Bryan in the title match. It just seemed a little weird that they decided to pivot in that direction because of and basically again turn Edge into a heel. So now you got Daniel Bryan as the baby face that everybody's supposed to root for. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, the Sasha Bianca thing, it's absolutely baffling, and it's this, like you said, this penchant of beating him down. It's also this penchant of, they absolutely have to have some sort of, angst between the two opponents, and they gotta build up some sort of, manufactured, whatever, hatred, whatever, instead of just being two rivals that know they could, put on probably an incredible match and just let it stand on its own. But no, we got to turn it into a soap opera.
We know they're going to have a great match, right?
Yes, so that's the sad
part. Let it just be about who's the best woman in the division. It's pretty simple,
It really is. It really is. Talking with Jon Alba from Spectrum Sports 360 and the Living the Gimmick podcast. All right, so let's switch gears to the Raw side. So Monday night on Raw, we know it was going to be Bobby Lashley defending the WWE title against Drew McIntyre. And then all of a sudden, let's just blow up the Hurt Business. Cedric Alexander, Shelton Benjamin are out of the Hurt Business. And then on top of all that, who do they bring in to help Lashley but Baron stinking Corbin? Now, I've heard the theory that they needed some way to make sure Bobby Lashley was booed when they do get the live fans. And I get that because it did seem like Bobby Lashley was becoming popular. But why? I mean, it's just like, let's just confuse things a whole lot more by bringing in a guy who's on SmackDown. And we know the brand split has its flaws. But now you bring in this guy from SmackDown to help Lashley against McIntyre.
Yeah, I'm heartbroken over the breakup of the Hurt Business because I thought the Hurt Business was one of the most productive acts on WWE TV that we've seen in some years. It took two guys in Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, and gave them legs. And I think it's just an awful way to cut off talent who were getting over on their own. They were benefiting from having their positives accentuated and their weaknesses hidden. And especially when you're going into such a big match with Bobby Lashley where, as you said, as the heel, he needs heat. Well, what better way to get heat on him than have him surrounded by a group of guys that look legitimate, like legitimate butt kickers, and a talking piece like MVP. It's baffling to me. I don't get it. And it's going to stunt any growth that you were getting out of Cedric Alexander and Shawn Benjamin as well. I don't see the point of it.
Does it? I would say it speaks to, and I hate to say this, it speaks to what Vince sees of them.
Potentially. I don't know what Vince McMahon's thinking is, but I think that this is something we see in WWE a lot where a group has a lot of wiggle room still to work with, and they're cut off or they're given dissension for the sake of having dissension. And the whole point of a faction and a manager is to groom talent and like I said, hide the weaknesses and put them in a position where they're ready to excel. And I think Sheldon and Cedric were certainly well on that way. I think you saw it even in Cedric Alexander's backstage promo the other night. But I worry about their future after this because they were a perfect fit for what Bobby Lashley had going, and they were booking him super strong, and then bam, in a matter of weeks, they were just cut off completely.
Well, what you just said about, factions so you can groom the younger talent. It seems that Vince et al. Have all of a sudden adopted the same philosophy with factions that they have with tag teams. In that, because, that was one of the original, aspects of having a tag team was that you might have someone that might be a tad weaker than the other. So you have group, team them together, bring up the other guy. But it just seems like every time you turn around, look, I'm all for them blowing up Retribution. That was the worst faction in recent memory, and I'm taking into account the Job Squad, the Oddities, the West Texas Rednecks. I mean, that one was bottom of the barrel. That one was fine. Blow that up, have Ali go on his own, fine. But you take what has to have been not only your best heel faction, but one that was getting over as heels. And like you said, the visual, the talent. And now you've sent Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander. I had to laugh last night, or Monday night on Raw, when they did the recap of the blow-up. And they're showing where, MVP basically fires them. They're showing the, earlier on Raw or whatever, but they also show the main event graphic. And it's almost like they were foretelling what's going to happen. We won't see Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander unless you watch main event from now on.
Bro, it's confusing because I really did feel like it was an act that had a lot of legs left to it, and I worry that it stunts the growth for even a guy like Shawn Benjamin who's been around forever. It was one of the better runs he's had in his career, so it's unfortunate to see that happen.
Yeah, I agree. I kept thinking last night, Charlie Haas, who teamed with Shelton Benjamin for so long, he still wrestles here in the state of Texas. He wrestles mainly in North Texas, and I saw him a few weeks ago, and I'm thinking, wonder what he and Shelton would look like together again. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, talking with Jon Alba from Spectrum Sports 360. So let's move over to this announcement that was made after weeks of we've been hearing it was going to happen, been hearing it's going to happen, and it finally happened. WWE announces they and the USA Network have extended their partnership to air NXT, and starting the week after WrestleMania, NXT moves to Tuesdays. How does WWE spin this to make it not look like we're giving up on, we're giving up in the battle against AEW?
I think the spin will be the NHL programming with USA Network necessitates it. But, I mean, look, the reality is it was bad for everybody, right? Like, this move was done regardless of what people want to say. And I've been dealing all day with people in my mentions about it who just refuse to acknowledge reality. It was done as counter-programming. And that's how pro wrestling was for so long, and that's that. Moving to Tuesday will benefit everybody. It will make NXT a stronger show. It will allow AEW to grow its own audience. I hate wrestling tribalism, Stu.
I do too.
I hate it so much.
I do too.
Just because you like one thing means you can't like the other, or you have to put down the other product. If you don't like something, don't watch it. It's really not a hard thing to do. And I don't know how you feel about it, but I felt since it moved to TV, generally speaking, NXT took a hit in quality because it changed the whole process of how NXT did business and did booking. And I thought for years NXT was the best pro wrestling show on television, or available rather. And I hope that this day, with them not doing counter programming, allows them to just present themselves as their own entity, not worry about what AEW is running or anybody else is running, and allow your stories to unfold instead of booking week to week. One thing that I noticed about NXT that changed immediately once it moved to TV was that you would never know what was going to be promoted for the next week until a couple days before the show, if not the day of the show. Whereas in the previous era of NXT, because the way they tape things, you always had great promotion hyping weeks leading up to a match rather than counter programming. I hope that reverts back to that way with this format of NXT on Tuesdays.
Yeah, I hope so too. I agree that it just, like you said, it felt like they were doing it week to week. They were, it's what WCW did in their dying days. They were trying to one-up Monday Night Raw from week to week. They didn't think about long-term. And NXT, if they can get back to, thinking weeks ahead, they've got the talent. They've got the direction. They've done it before. And as you said, it was among the best wrestling products on television. All they got to do is go back to that. And I know a lot of people will blame it on, this star went to Raw, this star went to SmackDown, different roster members getting moved. There's still a whole lot of good talent there.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
the NXT roster is absolutely just loaded, and there's no reason to suggest that it will be stunted. They can do what they can do with that roster they've got assembled, and so much talent that they've just brought in that haven't even debuted yet on TV. My buddy Christian Casanova, I think, could be a major star there. And I really hope that they take advantage of Tuesdays, and it will be good for everybody.
I couldn't agree more. I think it'll be wonderful. I think we will see NXT's numbers go up. We'll obviously see AEW's numbers go up. As you said, I think everybody wins, including the fans. Not to mention now, one of my cohorts at the Horn was talking about now, you're about to get wrestling every night of the week. Well, guess what? We've got it now because you got Raw on Mondays, NXT will be on Tuesdays, AEW on Wednesdays, Impact on Thursdays, and SmackDown on Fridays. So,
yeah, look, I mean, Impact was running Tuesdays. They made the switch. It's a lot to take in, man. No doubt about it.
And that's the thing, because Impact's doing some good shows. They're having some success, albeit, I'm not sure how much the collaboration with AEW is helping that, but it's still interesting, and it's still worth at least taking a look at.
And keep in mind, as you know, as someone who's always on the AEW calls too, there's going to be a third hour of AEW programming that's going to be on TNT later this year at some point too.
That's true. Before I let you go, I got to ask you, speaking of AEW, are you ready to see a reality show with Cody and Brandy?
Yeah, I mean, again, because of how much wrestling content we consume and all that, it's kind of hard. As someone who works in TV, ironically, I don't really get to watch a lot of TV. Live sports is pretty much the extent of what I get to watch on TV. And when I am not watching live sports, I'm watching like Chopped or Guys Grocery Games. So, which Guys Grocery Games, which is the true undefeated king of Wednesday nights, ahead of AEW and NXT typically. So I don't think I'll personally be able to work in the reality show with Cody and Brandy. With all due respect to them, I'm sure it will be great and entertaining. But yeah, I mean, look, it's credit to AEW talent crossing over and being taken in a more serious light, and that's good for everybody.
That's true. Okay, so then I got to ask, and I'm sorry, I got to do this. Which couple should they do a reality show next from AEW? I'm thinking. Let's do Marco Stunt and Paul White.
Ooh, that's not bad. I think the Dark Order just need their own sitcom.
Yes,
they basically have BTE, but I just think they are so relentlessly entertaining. And I'll tell you, man, John Silver is a diamond in the rough. He is incredible and has such a great personality. And I hope he's someone, especially after his great TNT Championship match, I hope he gets to continue to be featured on AEW programming pretty prominently once he gets healthy.
I couldn't agree more. He is Jon Alba. Follow him on Twitter at Jon Alba. Catch him on Spectrum Sports 360 there in Central Florida. Also catch him on Living the Gimmick podcast, anywhere you can get your podcast. Jon, thanks for giving me some time, man. All the best to you. Hope you survive next week down in Central Florida. Above all, be well, be safe, and we'll talk again soon.
Appreciate you, Stu.